All right, welcome to concept number 5. You already have concept number 5 written down in yours, but I don't, so I gotta write it down. Okay, so let's get our vocabulary out of the way first. So this section is all about analyzing data, and this is where we get a little bit more intense as far as formulas go, and you'll see that towards the end of this section. This is where we're gonna fill in some more formulas on your formula sheet. We'll do that in class. So let's get out of the way some vocabulary. So measures of variation, which we talked a little bit about in concept number 4, describe how the data in a data set are spread out. Range, interquartile range, standard deviation. We've talked a little bit about range and interquartile range, but we haven't talked about standard deviation, which we're going to do in this section. So the range is the difference between the greatest and least values. So instead, I know on your project we just did, 1 to 50 if that was your range. In this section, we're actually going to subtract. So if your range was from 1 to 50, you're going to subtract 50 minus 1, so your range would actually be 49. That's what we're going to do in this section. Okay? The variance is the average of the squared differences from the mean, how the data is spread out from the mean. I'm going to show you how to find this. Okay, there's a formula we're going to use to find variance. So the average of the squared differences from the mean. It sounds really complicated, but it's not. Okay, so the interquartile range, which we talked a little bit about in concept number 4, or IQR, is the difference between the first and third quartiles, the middle 50% of the data. I'm actually going to show you how to figure out the interquartile range. It's really, really easy. Standard deviation is a measure of how each value in a data set varies or deviates from the mean. The Greek letter sigma, so this is sigma, it looks kind of like an O with a line over it, sort of, represents standard deviation. So you're going to have to use this symbol to represent standard deviation. Okay? So and here's how you find the standard deviation. Find the mean of the data set. We call that x bar. Remember, x bar. That one we learned in concept number 4. Find the differences between each value and the mean. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the value and subtract the mean from it. Some values are going to be less than the mean, some values are going to be more than the mean, and that's okay. You're going to take each value, so you're going to make a table, and we'll do this together in the video and then in class, and subtract the mean from each value. Okay? Then you're going to square each difference. You're going to take that difference and you're going to square it. Okay, you're just going to plug it in your calculator and square it. Then find the average or the mean of these squares. This is where it kind of looks complicated, but it's really not. So we're going to use this capital sigma. That's what this is. Capital sigma means sum. So the sum of all of those squares you just found divided by how many data points there are. That's all this is saying. The sum of all the squares of the differences of the mean, okay, divided by how many there are. And I'm going to show you how to do this, okay? That is actually the variance, okay? So standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So standard deviation is the square root of the average of the difference of the squares of the differences from the mean square rooted. That's all it is. Like I said, it looks complicated, and we're going to write this in our formula sheet, but this, once you go through it a couple times, it gets really easy. It's pretty tedious, but it's not that hard. Okay, and the last vocab word we have is z-score. Okay, the z-score is the number of standard deviations that a value is from the mean. And there is a formula for z-score. So z equals the value subtracted the mean, so value minus mean over the standard deviation. Okay, so there's an easier way to write this. The value minus the mean over the standard deviation. Okay, and that's another formula we're going to write down on our formula sheet. So like I said, this is where it starts getting pretty formula intense. It looks complicated, but once we go through it a couple times, you'll understand it. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to do number 1.